week 3 of the fantasy football season, and here's the top 36 running backs I'm ranking this week. So right now, a lot of injuries and a lot of guys nicked up, where we're going to see a lot of guys in these rankings that you're not used to seeing even in the top 20, and they've made the top 20. So on workload alone, a lot of these guys are bumped up the rankings than usual. The first running back is Christian McCaffrey of the San Francisco 49ers. So the first 2 weeks, he's picked up where he left off as McCaffrey. He was the first pick overall or second usually in most fantasy drafts. And this week here with a great matchup versus a Giant defense that hasn't stopped James Conner or Tony Pollard the first couple weeks. In the Niners home opener here, McCaffrey rolls on Thursday Night Football, and I got him at number 2, Bijan Robinson of the Atlanta Falcons. So Bijan so far, everything he was advertised to be going in the early mid-first round of most fantasy drafts. And so far, he's amongst the league leaders of fantasy points at the running back position. So right now, this week with a good matchup in a potential shootout at the Detroit Lions here, I think Bijan once again could get anywhere 15 to 20 fantasy points. And also, he's a great receiver out of the backfield as well. And he's making a lot of guys look silly on defense. So I got him at 2, number 3, Derrick Henry of the Tennessee Titans. So Derrick Henry, a lot of people thought the decline was coming, and yes, he's been off the field more so far in the early going of the season, but he's still getting his carries, he's still getting his reps, and even behind the bad offensive line, he's getting the job done as Derrick Henry and putting up fantasy points in the first couple of weeks of the season. I know this week it's a pretty tough matchup with the Cleveland Browns, but Derrick Henry, especially with all these injuries around at the running back position this week here, and major guys out for the season already. Derrick Henry this week, it wouldn't be surprising to me if he finishes as a top 3 back. Number 4, Tony Pollard of the Dallas Cowboys. So Tony Pollard last week coming off a career high 32 touches in that ball game was Pollard versus the New York Jets. And now this week he's got a great matchup at the Arizona Cardinals that really can't stop anyone. We saw Barkley have a big ball game. We saw Brian Robinson in week 1 have a good ball game as well. And this week here in a ball game where the Cowboys could get off to an early start and run out the clock in the second half of the game, I think Pollard's going to get a decent workload once again. And we know he's a dynamic running back that could catch the ball out of the backfield and run in between the tackles. And it was good to see him get a big workload and see how he can respond in the upcoming weeks from it. Number 5, Joe Mixon of the Cincinnati Bengals. So like I said, these rankings here, they're going to be tough this week with all the injuries. And Joe Mixon, he's a guaranteed running back where he's getting obviously 90% of the snaps over there for this Cincinnati Bengal team. And with Joe Burrow possibly out, and even if he does play, he's not 100% for Monday Night Football with the calf injury re-aggravating here is Burrow. I think Mixon is going to get a big workload regardless. And this Bengal team, I know it's only week 3, but 0-2 already, 2 games out in the division. This is pretty much a must-win ball game, and it's a good matchup versus the Los Angeles Rams, where we've seen Kenneth Walker have a good game in week 1 and McCaffrey last week have a good ball game. So I got Mixon at 5. Number 6, Josh Jacobs of the Vegas Raiders. So the first 2 weeks have been shaky, no doubt about it here for Josh Jacobs, where last week he rushed for negative 2 yards, but he did salvage today with 5 catches, 51 yards versus the Bills. But this week here versus a pretty good Pittsburgh front line, I think Jacobs, he's going to get the workload, obviously. Another running back that's getting 90% of the snaps for his team here. And they're going to have to rely on him in this one, especially if Davante Adams isn't 100%, even though he will play in this ball game. But anyway, Josh Jacobs in this ball game, I think, has a good one. And he's a running back that's going to get carries, and it's just a matter of time before I think he breaks out once again. And this week it could happen in the home opener versus Pittsburgh. Number 7, DeAndre Swift of the Philadelphia Eagles. So Swift, he took the backfield by storm over there for this Eagle team on Thursday Night Football last week, rushing for 175 yards and finding the end zone. So this week here, tougher matchup obviously at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the first game of the doubleheader of Monday Night Football. But right here, DeAndre Swift, he looked good. He fits this Philly offense like a glove, in my opinion. And right now, it could be a little bit of overreacting having him at number 7. But like I said, there's not many great backs anymore with all the injuries here. And a lot of guys splitting with just a lot of unknown guys as well in the lineups here this week for running back. So right now, DeAndre Swift, well, he's coming off a monster game, and he should get a big workload once again, and we know he's the best receiver in that backfield over there in Philly. I got him at 7. Number 8, Travis Etienne of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So ETN last week, he got pretty much all the carries over there. Tank Bigsby didn't do much. Dearness Johnson, I know, got a few carries. But ETN's the man over there in Jacksonville. After week one, it almost was a 50-50 split. This week here versus the Houston Texans coming to town. We know they're one of the worst run Ds in the league. We just saw Zach Moss go for 20 fantasy points in PPR leagues. I'm not saying Zach Moss is a horrible running back, but obviously he's not the echelon of Travis Etienne. So this week here with a good matchup, good workload, I got him at 8. Number 9, Ramondre Stevenson of the New England Patriots. I know it's a tough ball game at the New York Jets, one of the better front lines and defenses in the league. But like I said, with workload and his catching ability out of the backfield here, Stevenson, he's going to put up fantasy points. He's their main man on the offense right now. Looks like him and Hunter Henry. And this is going to be a grinded out defensive type of ball game, because I could see Stevenson, honestly, in this one, getting at least 25 touches in between carrying the ball and through the air. And Ezekiel Elliott, so far, the first few weeks, he really hasn't been a factor in that backfield. So even with a tough matchup, just on workload alone and his catching ability here, I got Stevenson at 9. Number 10, Kenneth Walker of the Seattle Seahawks. So Kenneth Walker, a lot of people thought Zach Charbonnet early in the season was going to eat into his workload, but they were obviously wrong. And this week here, he's got a good matchup versus the Panthers coming to Seattle. Walker's an elusive back. He's a guy that's got a nose for the end zone when they're at the goal line. And he's got home run ability as well, where he could break a 60, 70-yard run at any time. So this week here with a good matchup and his workload looking well over there in the backfield for Seattle, I got him at 10. Number 11, James Cook of the Buffalo Bills. I spoke about James Cook a lot last season, hoping he was going to break out. But this season, he's the man over there in Buffalo. I know Latavius Murray's getting the short yardage work, and Harris is coming in as a change of pace guy. But in terms of receiving the football and getting those 15, 20 touches per game, James Cook's the number 1 back over there for this Buffalo Bill team. And last week, he's coming off over 100 yards, and this week, a good matchup at the Washington Commanders. So right now, James Cook's getting a good workload. He's in a great offense, where obviously defenses are prepping for Josh Allen running the football, Stephon Diggs, and even Gabe Davis, who came off a good game. So this week, with a good matchup and a good work he's going to get in this one, I got him at 11. Number 12, Kyren Williams of Los Angeles Rams. So after week 1, Williams having a good ball game, this Ram team said, we'll forget about Cam Akers, we'll put him on the trade block. And as of now recording this video, we haven't seen Akers go anywhere yet. But anyway, Kyren Williams, 2 great games to start the season. And this week here, he's got a pretty good matchup with the Cincinnati Bengals on Monday Night Football. So Kyren Williams coming off 28 fantasy points last week in PPR leagues. He's a dual threat out of the backfield, catching the football, running in between the tackles. And he's another guy, 4 touchdowns already in the first 2 ball games. So this week here at Cincinnati, it's a good matchup. And like I said, they got a lot of confidence in him over there in Los Angeles. Last season, I thought they wanted to make him the starting running back at the end of the year, but he was just not 100%. But this year looks good, and he's a running back that's carving out a good role, and he's playing a majority of the snaps as well, with no competition really over there anymore at the backfield position. Number 13, Jahmyr Gibbs of the Detroit Lions. So David Montgomery, we'll see if he's going to be out a couple weeks here. He said it's going to take a few weeks to heal, but Dan Campbell, head coach, said it's day to day. But anyway, Jahmyr Gibbs, we know he's a great athlete. We know he's one of the better catching running backs already out of the backfield in his rookie season. And if he just could get 15, 20 touches per game, Jahmyr Gibbs could be a top 15 running back the rest of the season. So this week, he in a potential shootout, and with Montgomery's injury here in Detroit versus a middle-of-the-pack type of Atlanta defense, I got him at 13. Number 14, Rachaad White of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Rachaad White, we know he's a solid running back. Last season, rookie year, 50 catches out of the backfield. We know he's the number 1 back over there. I know it's a tough matchup versus Philly, but going off, catching the football out of the backfield, and just workload. Like I said, a lot of backs out this week here. Rachaad White, I got him at 14 because I think he could carve out 10, 12 fantasy points. Worst case in that. And that's pretty much mid-1, number 2 running back numbers. Number 15, Raheem Mostert of the Miami Dolphins. And Mostert came off one of the best ball games of his career. Over 100 yards and 2 TDs last week versus a solid New England Patriot defense. So this week here, a better matchup versus the Denver Broncos. We just saw Brian Robinson go for 87 rush yards, 2 touchdowns, and he added a few catches as well for 42 yards. So this week here, Mostert, good matchup versus Denver. Jalen Waddle might be out where they might run the football a little bit more this week here. And it's the home opener for Miami as well. So as long as Mostert's healthy, he could be a solid running back the rest of the way as a number 2 guy. Number 16, Jerome Ford of the Cleveland Browns. So Nick Chubb, devastating knee injury, out for the season, obviously, and possibly his career, unfortunately, could be in jeopardy with all that going on in his knee. But right now, Jerome Ford, hottest pickup of the week, obviously. And he had a great ball game coming in for Nick Chubb after he went down with the knee injury, rushing 106 rush yards, and then 3 catches, 25 yards with a receiving touchdown. I know Kareem Hunt, even Ford, I still think will be the man over there. I know Hunt, he'll come in as a change of pace and third down back for the most part, but I think Ford's going to get majority of the work. It could be a 65-35 split going in Ford's favor. So this week here versus the Tennessee Titans, I think Ford can make things happen. I know the Titans are solid versus the run, but in the pass game really can't stop anyone. But right now, like I said, right away, I don't see Hunt getting on the field that much here. He's got to get into football shape. I know he's up to snuff, obviously, with the playbook, being with the Browns the last few seasons. But anyway, Jerome Ford, I like him this week at 16. Number 17, Breece Hall of the New York Jets. So last week, I don't know what the Jets were thinking here. I know it was a tough game at a tough defense of the Dallas Cowboys, but to only give a running back like Breece Hall with top 10 potential only 4 carries is a mistake. But this week here, I think they right that wrong with the New England Patriots coming to town. And this is going to be a grinded out type of ball game, no doubt about it, between these two division rivals. So right now, I think Breece Hall, the workloads are going to go up in this ball game. Dalvin Cook hasn't looked impressive at all, and it's pretty much Hall's backfield. I know they want to have him on a pitch count coming off of the ACL injury, but if this Jet team wants to start winning ball games with a tough schedule coming up, obviously with New England, Kansas City, Denver, Philly, they got to start running the football more. And I think this week they make an emphasis on it. And I got Hall at 17, 18, Javonte Williams of the Denver Broncos. Javonte Williams, so far, he's looked all right first 2 weeks of the season. Another guy coming off the ACL, not 100%. And this week in Miami, I think it's middle of the pack type of ball game, because this could be a game where it gets out of hand early, where they're trying to chase points, is this Bronco team, and they got to throw a lot. But Javonte Williams, I still think, could carve out a decent role. And like I said, the running back position this week, very weak. So guys like this, who I don't think is going to have great games, they're still up there within the top 20. Number 19, Isaiah Pacheco of the Kansas City Chiefs. Isaiah Pacheco last week, he ran the football well, surgery in the offseason and training camp. And right now he's got a good matchup versus the Chicago Bears, but I could see obviously the Chiefs get off to a quick start in this one, and then in the second half of the ball game, run the clock out. So right now, Pacheco, I think this could be the best game he has this season. I know it's only been 2 games, but right now the game script definitely could favor him in this one. And I got him at 19, number 20, Dameon Pierce of the Houston Texans. So Dameon Pierce, it's been a tough 2 weeks here to start the season. But like I said, there's not much going on at the running back position, where guys like Pierce, who you don't really want to play and you should sit, you're going to start him. I know it's a tough matchup at Jacksonville, where this could be a game where they're chasing points. And this season could be a lot where they're chasing points, and Pierce, he's not much of a factor in the passing game, catching the ball out of the backfield. But this week here is a number 2 option, even in a tougher matchup at Jacksonville. I got him at 20-21, Joshua Kelly of the Los Angeles Chargers. So Austin Eckler, it looks like he's going to be out once again this week here, is Eckler. And it's a big blow, obviously, for this Charger team. And last week, they barely ran the football versus the Tennessee Titans, it seemed like. But this week at the Minnesota Vikings, I think Kelly could bounce back. He could have a good ball game. This Minnesota team that just got shredded for over 200 yards on the ground from the Philadelphia Eagles. And right here, I think Joshua Kelly could have a pretty solid ball game this week here. As long as he's going to get touches and get some work if Eckler's out. He's obviously a guy that could get you 10, 12 fantasy points this week. But Eckler, there's no timetable for his return, so I'm not counting on Eckler at all. Coming back this week, 22, James Conner, the Arizona Cardinals, for the first 2 weeks of the season here. It's been solid numbers for Conner, but this week a very tough matchup versus the Dallas Cowboys coming to town. We saw the Cowboys shut down the run game for the New York Jets, and even in week 1, Saquon Barkley, they bottled up for the most part. So it's a tough matchup, and this could be a ball game where they're chasing points early and often, is this Arizona Cardinal team. So Conner, he's looked good, like I said, the first 2 weeks, but in a tough matchup this week here versus the Dallas Cowboys, to be honest, I'm not expecting much out of him. So I got him at 22, 23, Brian Robinson of the Washington Commanders. So right here, Brian Robinson with a breakout ball game with 28 fantasy points in PPR leagues last week in week 2. But this week, a very tough matchup versus the Buffalo Bills. And this could be a ball game where obviously the game script isn't going to favor Robinson, where they're going to have to throw a whole lot. Even though last week they threw a whole lot, coming back from 2 touchdowns versus Denver. And Robinson still got his, but this week here versus a very good Buffalo defense, I don't see that being the case. So right now, with game script and just a tough matchup I got him at 23, 24, Zach Moss of the Indianapolis Colts. Zach Moss here, he got pretty much every snap in last week's ball game, which is pretty much unheard of nowadays. I know these guys used to do it all the time in the 80s and the 90s of these running backs and even the early 2000s, but right now, to see a guy pretty much play every snap except one last week here, that's definitely eye-popping, and just on volume and workload, Moss is going to get a good workload. Deion Jackson, they don't like over there, obviously, in Indianapolis. He had 2 fumbles in week 1. And Zach Moss, he came in at 20 fantasy points last week. I know it was the Houston Texans, and I know this week it's a tough matchup of Baltimore, where this game could get out of hand early, and they're going to have to pass the ball a whole lot, this Indianapolis Colts team. But this week on workload and potential here, I got Zach Moss as a borderline 2 running back flex option, and I got him at 24 even in a tough matchup. 25 was staying in Baltimore with Gus Edwards of the Baltimore Ravens. So last week it pretty much was a split in terms of carries between Edwards and Justice Hill, with Hill getting 11 carries and Gus Edwards getting 10 carries for 62 yards and a touchdown. So Edwards, he's going to be the short yardage back, obviously, but I like him a lot in between the tackles, Gus Edwards. He's always had a high average per carry throughout his career, and this week here in a good matchup versus the Indianapolis Colts, I think he could have a good ball game once again, and I think he could be a fringe number 2 flex option. This week, 26, Miles Sanders of the Carolina Panthers. So I'm not a big Miles Sanders guy at all, but he's another running back that just has opportunity. And with all these injuries here, you still got to rank him a little bit up there, is Miles Sanders. So this week here, this Carolina Panther team goes to Seattle, and it's going to be a tough environment, no doubt about it, with the 12th man and all over there for this Carolina Panther team, where their offensive line isn't great. They don't have a lot of weapons on the offense as well, but just on workload and Sanders possibly finding the end zone, saying getting 40, 50 yards and a touchdown, I got him at 26, 27, Alexander Madison of the Minnesota Vikings. Alexander Madison, the first 2 weeks, he really hasn't done anything for fantasy owners. I know week 1, he did have 12 fantasy points in PPR leagues, but a touchdown bailed him out. And then last week on Thursday Night Football, I know they trailed that ball game quickly, down 20 points in that one was Minnesota, where they just dropped back with Kirk Cousins and throw pretty much the remainder of the game. But Madison's not really a back out of the backfield that could catch the football. This week here, we could see another shootout with them and the Los Angeles Chargers, with just both quarterbacks going up and down the field here. Madison, he's still going to get the work week. I got him at 27, 28, Najee Harris of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Najee Harris, I'm not big at all on Najee Harris. This season I avoided him, and so far the first 2 weeks he hasn't done anything. 5.3 point fantasy points in PPR leagues in both weeks. So right now, he's not explosive out of the backfield. The offensive line isn't that great, and he don't really catch the football out of the backfield. I think Jaylen Warren's looked like the better running back over there this season so far, and even towards the end of last year in the backfield for this Pittsburgh Steelers team, where he's a running back that's got burst. He's a running back that can catch the ball out of the backfield. But right now, Najee Harris is still the man over there in the backfield, but Warren's definitely creeping up. So this week at Vegas, I could see Harris possibly finding the end zone, but I don't see him running for a lot of yards in this ball game. And just another guy that's going to get work in volume, and that's why I have him this week here, 28, 29, A.J. Dillon of the Green Bay Packers. A.J. Dillon, he possibly could start once again in this ball game if Aaron Jones is out. So right now, Jones, we know he missed week 2 with the hamstring injury, and those injuries obviously linger in multiple week injuries. But last week, like I said, Dillon didn't do anything versus the Falcons. Only 7 fantasy points in PPR leagues. So this week here, another matchup that's going to be tough for him versus New Orleans Saints coming to town in the Packers home opener. And I think this Packer team is more of a pass-first team, believe it or not, with Jordan Love. But if you see Aaron Jones does come back, even though I don't have him coming back this week here, A.J. Dillon, he won't even crack this top 36, number 30, Tony Jones of the New Orleans Saints. I don't know if Keandre Miller is going to be healthy for this ball game on the short week, but Tony Jones, he came in for Jamal Williams, and he looked good in that ball game, scoring 17 fantasy points with 2 touchdowns in PPR league. So this week, it looks like he definitely can be the man in the backfield. Here's Tony Jones versus the Green Bay Packers. I know it's not a great matchup, but if Miller doesn't play in this ball game and Jamal Williams most likely will be out with his injury, I think Tony Jones could carve out a decent role and be a decent flex option. But this week versus Green Bay, he's not really a guy I could count on. But he makes this top 30, obviously, because he's going to get work in this one. Number 31, Jaylen Warren of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So like I said, Jaylen Warren, he's definitely creeping up over there on Najee Harris, where this soon could be a 50-50 split sooner than later, I believe. He's a better receiver out of the backfield. He's got better burst, in my opinion, is Jaylen Warren as well than Najee Harris. And he just fits this scheme, I think, with Kenny Pickett and the Steeler offense. So right now, this week here, Vegas, let's see if he gets a little more work in this ball game as Jaylen Warren. Like I said, he's the better back in my opinion, but I got him at 31-32, Khalil Herbert of the Chicago Bears. The Bears that could be down early and often in this ball game here versus the Kansas City Chiefs, where Justin Fields will just have to drop back and throw or run the football himself. So this week here, Herbert, he's still the number one back over there in the backfield, with Roschon Johnson being the passing downs back. And we even saw Donta Foreman be a healthy scratch last week. So right now, Herbert, he's going to get opportunity. I don't think he'll have a great ball game, but I got him at 32-33. Justice Hill of the Baltimore Ravens. So Justice Hill, we know he's been a good running back in the time he's gotten opportunities throughout his career. And right now, him and Gus Edwards pretty much a split over there in Baltimore, where last week they pretty much played the same amount of snaps. But the interesting thing to me was Hill actually had 3 goal line snaps, where Gus Edwards only had 1 or 2, but Gus Edwards did get the touchdown at the goal line in that ball game. So this week here with a good matchup versus Indianapolis, I think Gus Edwards and Hill both could be good fantasy factors this week, but you just don't know what you're going to get from Hill, really. I think Gus Edwards, you know you're going to get more rushing yards and possibly the goal line, and that's why I got Hill at 33-34. Matt Breida of the New York Giants, Breida versus one of his former teams in the San Francisco 49ers. Quan Barkley's going to be out. You could see Barkley coming back next week for this New York Giant team, but don't see Matt Breida doing much. I think him and Brightwell possibly could split in the backfield as well. So this week with a tough matchup, if you need a guy in desperation, if you're a Nick Chubb owner or had injuries like J.K. Dobbins or Aaron Jones this week here, I got him at 34-35. Craig Reynolds of the Detroit Lions. So Montgomery, I think he's going to be out multiple weeks here, and Craig Reynolds will play a factor in this backfield here, I believe, for this Detroit Lion team. Even with Jahmyr Gibbs there, I don't think Gibbs is going to get a full workload for this Lion team. Craig Reynolds, we saw last season, get some work. And if Montgomery's out multiple weeks, it's still going to be a split, in my opinion, kind of, with Reynolds doing more, obviously, the in between the tackles, first and second down, and Gibbs being more the third down, passing downs guy. But anyway, I got Reynolds at 35, and the 36 and final running back I'm ranking this week here is Dalvin Cook of the New York Jets. So the first 2 weeks here, to be honest, Dalvin Cook, the explosiveness is gone. The big playability looks like it's gone from him, obviously. And he fumbled last week versus the Dallas Cowboys. And right now, he's barely averaging 2 yards per carry. So this week in another tough matchup versus the division rival, where you know the Patriot team, they're going to dare the Jets to try to throw the football by going all out on the run, stacking the box with 9 and 10 guys. I don't see Cook doing much, but he does crack the top 36 at 36. That's the top 36 running backs I'm ranking E3 of the fantasy football season.